I remember I was hapu with my first child and had someone, go, oh, well, she's not going to come back, or, she's not going to be effective at Sharesies, or, that kind of stuff. And then when I had just gone on maternity leave, Jacinda announces she's pregnant. And I was like, well, no one's going to worry about me now because if she can do it, And I actually did notice a cultural shift at that or not long after that moment, I think, or, in the years following. And, so now I've been able to have 2 children while we've grown Sharesies. And I would have said that was the minority viewpoint. So many people were supportive and like, yeah, go get it, And I think the team here were just, really supportive too. Well, they definitely were really supportive.
Kia ora, everyone, and welcome. Today we are having a candid conversation with Brooke Roberts, CEO and founder or co-founder of Sharesies. Brooke, would love to just kick off with an introduction, a little bit about yourself, who you are and what you do at Sharesies.
Yeah, kia ora koutou, everyone. I'm Brooke, one of the co-founders, as mentioned, and one of the co-CEOs here at Sharesies. 7 of us kicked off Sharesies 4 years ago, and it's just been an incredible journey as we work towards creating the most financially empowered generation by giving someone with $5 the same investment opportunities as someone with 5 million.
Outstanding. So to dig into that a little bit more, for the people that are not familiar with Sharesies, which would be hard to imagine given the coverage that you guys have got at the moment, but what is the problem that Sharesies is trying to solve?
So essentially, we are really trying to make sure that investing is really accessible and inclusive, and also making sure that we're building really confident and motivated investors. So the core problem is, we spent 6 months doing pure customer research before we even started thinking about how we would design Sharesies or really what we would focus on. And from our research, we of like deep ethnographic interviews to also a good old survey of all the people, a representative sample of Aotearoa, we found that there were 3 key things that were keeping people out of investing. And that was, they felt that they were priced out, that you needed heaps of money, jargoned out, like it wasn't it wasn't using everyday language or felt like it was for everyone. And the last one was left out, that there was so much more work to do in terms of making investing really inclusive. And so we set out to break down those barriers. Through that research, we also learned that 99.5% of New Zealanders want to be investors. So we're like, well, cool, there's a want here, but there's all these barriers. How do we smash them down? And with technology available today, there's just no reason why investing isn't accessible. So we got to work and created Sharesies.
Outstanding. It's an incredible story. One, I'm certainly a customer, and all of my nephews are also customers as well. I think in a country that seems to be obsessed with putting money into property, it's really incredible the sort of headway that you've made in terms of making investing in shares a lot more accessible to everyone. So congratulations on that. You talked a little bit about the ideation phase for Sharesies. Can you tell me a little bit about the founders or the group of founders that you've put together? How did you guys know each other, and sort of how did you sort of formulate the idea to get moving on it?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say I put them together. We all seem to come together in a fun and funky way, really. All of us didn't really know each other. Sonia, who's one of the founders, had the original idea behind Sharesies and told my husband Layden about it, and he ran an investment club since the age of 17 with 13 of his friends putting money away every week. I was like, oh, well, in here there is something we can do, but you shouldn't have to be Layden's mate in order to have access to investing. And Layden, myself, and 2 of the other co-founders, Richard and Martin, were toying with ideas on the side. They're both developers, and Sonia and her partner Ben and John also were conjuring up things, and obviously Sharesies was one of them. And so we all got together and really decided, hey, with our skills combined, we can bring this to life. So Layton, Sonia, and I went full-time first up with Sharesies, and then 3 of the other co-founders joined us on the journey, and now all of us are back in the business, which is really cool, and that's great. And yeah, it's just been a really exciting time growing the idea and into what the impact this has today, and then knowing that there's so much more that we need to be doing to really create a financially empowered generation. The key thing we did early on that has enabled that to be so successful, because at that time you were getting told, what, 7 founders is never going to work. It's got to be 2 max. And we were like, yeah, nah, this is how we're going to do it. And what we did in that first week of really getting together after we'd done all that research and, 3 of us going full time on Sharesies, we all sat down and really chatted about what type of place we wanted to create. What are things we've seen in workplaces we never want to see happen in our workplace? What are things that we want Sharesies to stand for? Because we knew we were creating more than a product, we were creating a company. And from that rich conversation all of us had and jotting down all the bullet points, it was really clear our values really aligned and really came to life out of that, which are Chase Remarkable, In It Together and Always Care. And they have been such a great foundation for us, from making sure we're having really critical conversations with each other, that we're approaching things with the behaviours that we all expected, and all of that has enabled this culture to really flourish, which is fantastic. So yeah, from 4 years ago now, we've got a team of around 120 of us, and that's growing here in Aotearoa and also in Australia. We've got over $1 billion of funds on our platform. Funds being managed on our platform, and so that's invested through us, and that's by over 317,000 investors. So we've scaled a lot since then, and so much more.
Pretty incredible growth journey in such a short space of time, and in a moment we'll touch a little bit out where that sort of heads into the future. I'd love to hear maybe a little bit more about that sort of founding conversation that you had, or the values structure that you put in place, and how that has informed everyone else that's come into the business. Has that been a really core pillar of how you've introduced other people into your organization?
Definitely. I mean, it's the first interview we do when we're hiring, it's all centered around that, really getting to know the person, letting them know us and our style and how things have worked here, but also really seeing that cultural contribution. We're not looking for fit, we're looking for how can this person help grow what we've got here, and really add to it, and seeing that they naturally work in that collaborative rather than individualistic way, and put a lot of care into what they do, and have kind of Chase Remarkable through their career to date, or their journey, if they haven't had a career yet. And I think, it helps us identify people that want to join Sharesies, along with our purpose too, like that real strong purpose, and people coming in and going, yep, I want to work for a purpose-driven organization for this purpose in particular, which is creating a really financially empowered generation, and also wanting to work in the way that that is the way that we've started to create it, through those values coming to life.
That's really cool to hear. I suppose the other part to that, has there been any challenges having 6 founders? And if there has been, of course there would have been along the way, but how have you set about resolving that? I imagine that might have been part of the initial conversation as to how do you resolve those issues, but have you got any examples of those bumps?
We're just really straight up with each other, and we've got, over the 4 years too, we've developed such strong relationships that we just know where everything comes from, and it always comes from a good place, and so honestly I can't think of something that immediately comes to mind, because also the power of that group is that you get to have light shoulders at the end of the day in some ways, because you've got that collective conscious, and this is early on, now there's more of us that we can share that load, which is awesome. But I think that we have been really good at just making decisions and backing each other and supporting each other and questioning and challenging each other too. Early on, I think that helped us get great results, and now that's something that I hope that we see more and more in the culture here at Sharesies too. And as we grow, that there's just that real trust, that trust factor that can drive great results at the end of the day.
Cool. Yeah, that strong bonds are one that I'd love to maybe dig into a little bit more. The model of sort of shared responsibility and shared ownership, you mentioned in the past that you're running the 3 EOs or having 3 CEOs. It's quite unique, not just to New Zealand, but probably globally. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that came about and how it operates today?
Yeah, well, when we started, when Leighton, Sonia and I were full-time, we were getting strong advice at that time that we had to pick a CEO. And we were like, oh, why? And, you're going to be pitching to people. They're going to want to talk to the CEO. You need to pick one. And so we sat down together, the 3 of us, and really had an awesome conversation about that. And then I became the CEO for 3 years here at Sharesies. And so at the end of last year, we moved to this 3 EO model, which is Leighton, Sonia and I each being the executive officers. Leighton and Sonia have always been directors of Sharesies alongside me too. And we've got independents. So they've always had that kind of mindset anyway. And so it's been really great being able to, as the business grows and as as we've all grown too, and I've been coming back from maternity leave and all that sort of jazz, it's just been really fantastic that we're trialing and using this 3 EO model. And it's been a few months now, and it's really cool.
Cool, good stuff. And would you recommend that to other companies? I suppose, again, it has a uniqueness to you because of the relationship that you have between your founders and what have you. But do you think we're going to see more of that across other tech organizations that have multiple founders?
I think in a hyper-growth organization, it's really beneficial to, and you see that in other businesses that are in that hyper-growth stage where they do that co-CEO model. For us, the 3 just made sense from day one. We were the 3 that started. We've always been there together. We each bring our unique perspectives, and I think that works really well. It is a little bit unique to us, the 3 EO side, but I definitely see more and more value in that co-CEO kind of roles, and especially, like I said, in that growth phase. One thing we've always tried to counter is that kind of that individualistic culture when it comes to business, where it's like, there's one person on the top and it's all their success, but it's so not like that. And people in business, that it's not like that. It's the work, the mahi that everybody does every day that enables that business to thrive. And so it's kind of symbolic in that regard too. I think that's not how we think.
I'd love to sort of turn the focus towards the future. Obviously, having grown so quickly over the last 4 years, but obviously some pretty ambitious plans still. What does the future look like for Sharesies? So if you were to get your crystal ball out and amongst the other leaders there and see where you'd want to be in 5 years' time, what does that look like?
Well, we just had our strategy offsite where we took the whole team away for 2 days, so 117 of us, where we go and talk about our 3 to 5 year strategy and our strategy for this year, which is fantastic, and it's a really great opportunity to connect with each other, and also because our permanent staff here are owners of Sharesies through our employee share options program, that sharing that voice and sharing that perspective and getting those insights are really helpful too. For us, there's so much more here to do in Aotearoa. Sharesies has become more and more of a household name, but there's still so many people here still that aren't aware that investing is accessible to them, and there's still more work that we can be doing to make investing more and more accessible and inclusive. So we'll definitely be doing that. Along with growing in Australia, we're really kicking off our growth ambitions there and seeing how we can support Australians, and we're beta testing and things like that at the moment. So and then really learn there and look at what other areas that Sharesies really works.
Good stuff. So a lot on the plate at the moment, tackling the neighbours and then seeing what happens. In terms of that 117 people that you've now got working for you, is there any common sort of characteristic or trait across all of those people, or anything that binds you together?
I think the buy-in to those values, or just naturally is there. Everybody is incredibly unique, though, so I can't say that, like they're definitely all unique, and we've definitely want diverse perspectives around the table too. So not unified thinking, but I think unified in the values and the way that we want to bring this purpose to life.
Interesting. So yeah, bound together by those common values. You did mention a little bit there about, wanting diverse thought.
Ever since day one, what our aim is to create a team that's a representative sample of Aotearoa, but the populations that we work in, because that's the only way that we're really going to be able to create a really inclusive platform, but also just really making sure we are creating equal opportunities. That is at the ethos of what we try to do every day in the Sharesies product to, the way that we work. So that's really important to us. We actively do as much as we can in that space. We are in the intersection of the finance industry and the tech industry, which are notorious for a lack of diversity and inclusion practices. And that lack of diversity has, is something that we're really trying to tackle. So we make sure that we have gender equality where we can. We've got, we partner with this awesome organisation called Tupatoa, where we specifically assign internship roles to Māori and Pacifica that come through that program. There's just a bunch of work that we do in this space and continue to do to make sure that we build a really diverse and inclusive workplace that is representative of the places that we operate in.
Good stuff, and that's really cool to hear. And in terms of the progress that you're making, it sounds like you're tracking quite well in terms of sort of getting towards that end objective of representing all of New Zealand. How do you feel that that's coming along?
Yeah, I think as we grow, it becomes, there's more roles, and it becomes easier in some ways and harder in the others. Sometimes it's harder to hire for certain roles that have where people have been really excluded from opportunities in the past. So looking at, we've got to look at ways that we can really help from an internal promotion perspective, or help raise those opportunities for others. And yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, as people come and go, or as not that we've had many, if any, really leave Sharesies, but like that, just to keep that balance and just make sure it's always on top of our mind is really, really crucial.
Interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit about, how people that might be interested in Sharesies can, approach you guys. Like, what are you looking for as someone that is obviously hiring quite regularly, in terms of when people reach out to you, obviously checking them against your values, but how do people not get lost in and amongst the sea of CVs? And the second part to that is how do you sort of treat people that might not necessarily have the ticking all the boxes in terms of experience or components of a job description that you'd typically be looking for?
Yeah, the cover letter is just so crucial in this, and that's where I really look for, does this person really care about why we do what we do, our purpose? Like, does it resonate with them? Is there a story there? Is there something that makes Sharesies a place that they really want to work? And that just jumps out at you straight away. And when you see that, you're like, oh, I need to meet this person, and that can take down so many other barriers that you see there. So I think, that always stands people apart, where they've got this like deep connection to our why, and it connects with their why. It becomes like a natural way to open that door.
Interesting. Are you at all surprised that some people don't lead with that why as much as you would think that they do? Or do you see a lot of people arrive at your doorstep ready with that as the front and center of their approach?
I think those people that do that, they're more likely to get the interview or get that next step, which is definitely true. It's very, very, very obvious, I think, in job applications where somebody has taken out the job title, replaced it, and taken out the company name, replaced it, and then just talked about like it's just really, really clear when you can see that it's just a standardized cover letter that isn't tailored to, the company or to Sharesies.
And then in terms of the growth areas of your business or the sort of talent that you're looking to attract, are there any specific areas that, you're finding a shortage of people and you're really looking to see a lot more applications from that those roles?
Yeah, we're definitely always hunting for a diverse range of applicants in the developer space. That area grows a lot, especially in the tech lead area also. In Australia, we're hiring at the moment, and so that will grow a bit. But yeah, probably on the developer side is the area that we just really are leaning into to make sure people know that those opportunities exist here.
And then in terms of the developer and engineer pipeline, particularly people coming out of university, how you sort of support those younger people coming through, and is there good learning and development opportunities for people that maybe require a bit more experience?
Yeah, so we work with Summer of Tech and Tupatoa, as I mentioned before. We had 8 interns this summer, and the majority of them have turned into part-time or full-time roles here now at Sharesies, with I think 3 of them being either in the tech or development side of Sharesies, which is really cool.
Nice one. And then outside of sort of core skills that people can continue to develop, so becoming a better engineer, what are some of the other sort of skills, maybe soft skills or other skills that you think you'd love to see more development of people that are approaching you today?
Honestly, I get blown away so much by the people we get to see and their skills. I'm like, I don't think I had that when I was your age, or some of us joke sometimes like, would we even get a job here now? Like, it's just incredible, the talent out there, and like the nature and the way of thinking now, that we see too. I do see, and it comes with a lot of privilege sometimes, but that there is that finding ways to back yourself in that process. I think, there's still a lot of imposter syndrome out there, or confidence. And I think, that's a soft skill where finding ways that you can, have that confidence, or know that when you're applying here or anything, that we want you to succeed, and looking at it from that perspective. It's like, when you're applying for a job, it's not like they're just looking to judge you. They're wanting to give you an interview, like it's exciting, like that people want to be able to get people in the door. So just knowing, hey, I can do this. I think that's really important. But in terms of, other soft skills, empathy is really, really important. And, really understanding yourself and your barriers and your boundaries, along with, respecting others and empathizing with others, being our investors, our customers, or the people you work with, or the partners, and just yourself. And I think that's just a skill I had to lean into early on in my career, and I think it served me well.
Yeah, that's I think that's really useful insight, and something that a lot of people can take away from. We talked a little bit about diversity before. I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience as a female leader in tech, or just a female leader in the New Zealand business community. How has that been challenging, but also maybe advantageous as well?
Yeah, I think I'm in a fortunate time here in Aotearoa where it feels like people want women to succeed, and I feel like I've had a lot of support. I know that there's kind of privilege that comes with that too, but there have been challenging times for sure. I remember I was hapu with my first child, and had someone go, oh, well, she's not going to come back, or, she's not going to be effective at Sharesies, or, that kind of stuff. And then when I had just gone on maternity leave, Jacinda announced that she's pregnant, and I was like, well, no one's going to worry about me now because if she can do it, And I actually did notice a cultural shift at that or not long after that moment, I think, or in the years following. And so now I've been able to have 2 children while we've grown Sharesies. And I would have said that was the minority viewpoint. So many people were supportive and like, yeah, go get it, And I think the team here were just, really supportive too. Well, they definitely were really supportive. And again, I was raising capital too when I was hapu. And again, I'd get told, you wouldn't be able to raise money. Only like 4 to 12% of funds go to female businesses. But, we got to smash through those barriers and just been able to have this community around us that are just really supportive and wanted us to succeed, and a great range of stakeholders and shareholders who support that journey. So been really, in the whole, I think, quite fortunate.
Yeah, and obviously a good chance to have a big smile on your face going back to those 2 groups in particular after raising the money, and also coming back after a couple of kids and being able to contribute in a big way to a business. It's interesting that you mentioned Jacinda, but her as a role model or a sort of inspiration in terms of New Zealand female leaders. Is that one of your bigger ones, and are there others that you've taken a lot of guidance and inspiration from?
I've always found that kind of question really difficult when someone's like, what leader would you want to be, kind of thing. And it's like, I think I take little things from a lot of people, and even there's so many different levels of leadership. It doesn't have to be people leadership. It's people in the community that are doing things every day. And you're like, wow, that servant leadership is really something I really admire, and the way that I like to be as a leader, along with that really empathetic leadership style too. But yeah, and then just making sure creating an environment that's really driven for the purpose and that knows that business can be better or good for the world, and creating a business that is driving towards that or thriving, in that regard, and ultimately having fun too. So I wouldn't say there's like specific people. It's just there's inspiration every day that kind of inspires me to be better in this leadership role that I'm really lucky to have.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit about the Wellington scene. You guys are obviously one of the sort of darling growth tech companies down in Wellington. How has that been in terms of finding enough talent and the right talent? And, what is the startup environment down there like from your experience?
Yeah, I think we've been really lucky to be born here in Te Whanganui Atara, because there has been this really exciting kind of startup growth ecosystem here, from Trade Me and then all of the people there from the early days who've left to either invest or join other businesses, to Xero, who have just really driven a lot of growth here in the tech community, to the bunch of incredible startups here in the tech space, but also outside of that too. It feels like there's a lot of high potential here, which is and a lot of care for each other and a lot of collaboration. And I think that's awesome. Like you feel really supported, and you can go to other founders or entrepreneurs and be like, oh, I've got this niggle, and they'll be like, oh, I've had that before, or here's this policy, like that's just so open and transparent. We wanted each other to succeed, and I really feel that here.
That's really cool to hear. Obviously, the last year has been quite challenging across the board for a lot of companies and businesses around the world, and has really reshaped how people work in terms of a modern work environment. How has that impacted you guys, and has there been any developments around how you look at your work day or work environment moving forward?
Yeah, so obviously we needed to we're still during COVID, but during the lockdowns and the early lockdowns, we really needed to make sure that we were first off there for our people, and making sure that we were providing timely and really quick information and about what we knew was happening, the facts, and then also like what they meant for them and what they meant at Sharesies, and making sure they had the resources and the the equipment they needed at home and in order to feel like they could function there. And so really, first off, looking at them, and at the same time, our platform Sharesies started to get significant customer growth too. So we had a lot of increase there in terms of interactions with our investors and more and more needs on our platform, really. So it's been busy times here at Sharesies, but really fun supporting that growth. And and so we've always really cared about a flexible working environment and make sure that that's really accessible for everyone. And I think this just meant more people wanted to work from home, but when we found where we came out of lockdowns, actually a lot of people wanted to be back in the office too. So just making sure people could work where they work when they wanted to work, that they felt included when we're doing digital calls or whatever it might be. And so and really, really caring for people's well-being. So we have we've got quite a few of us here who are trained mental health first aiders, and including myself. And so that's really good to make sure we create space for people to know where they can reach out for someone to then help make sure they get the support or access to the support they need, along with just those check-ins and making sure people are able to put their well-being first too.
That's really interesting and super important at not just this time, but at any time. But great to hear that it's getting a lot more focus now, given there is a lot of people that would be dealing with a lot at the moment. I'm curious about your experience returning after having 2 kids, like returning to the workforce. Did you notice anything different in yourself?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like it's so interesting how how much I had to back myself coming back, it was interesting. So when I first had Al, I'd come into the office and I would have these things in my head like, oh, do people want me here? Am I being annoyed? Like these kind of things. And, nobody was showing me that. People were so excited about baby cuddles and they wanted, there was nothing externally. It was all kind of, the way that I was thinking about things. And I've talked to a few friends who, they all feel the exact same. And so it's just knowing, I think, like that internal talk, like actually people want to see you and they want to know what's going on. I think, and when you first come back to, when I first came back with Al, I was pumping during the day and I learned a lot of things about what that kind of helped me the second time, when I could reflect, where I would let meetings run over, and that meant that I just wouldn't hold my ground sometimes, or like I'd let a meeting run over, but I only had like 30 minutes to pump between my next meeting, but then that became 5 minutes and I couldn't even, and I was like, and I just, it's just like little things like that, but it all kind of compounded and made it a lot more difficult. And so this time I think and it was all, like I realized that was all, nobody was expecting that if I'd said, hey, I just need to go now, people would respect that, So I think the second time I've just been able to hold that a lot more and a lot more comfortable with those things, I think. And also really realizing more and more too, being the first woman to go through this at Sharesies, one of our co-founders, Richard, they had their baby the same day we incorporated, so he went through this all before me. But I learned a lot about the things that I wanted us to support, and I know Richard has too, and I think we're getting better and better at that stuff too. But yeah, the second time I had a bit more confidence, but yeah, you just, you're not sleeping well at night, and then you got to have your brain on, you figure it out somehow. I definitely, the second time around, had a lot more resilience, and kind of like we're able to set those boundaries and be a lot clearer with it, and realize just how everybody is so supportive.
Yeah, interesting. Excuse my ignorance in this regard, but how would you term that? Like, is that a form of imposter syndrome, or like those doubts about whether or not you are wanted back in the workplace, is that just because you're tired? Like, what does that sort of mean for you?
I think it's a myriad of things. I don't know what one thing I could put it down to. I'm sure somebody out there has written a blog or done a podcast about it that explains it or breaks it down a lot better than I. But maternal health or parental health is really, everybody's health is really important. But when you're going through those hormone changes and all these sort of things, I think too, like, I think just really realizing you are still, because I came back maybe when both of them were between 4 and 6 months, that you're still in that, that phase. So come back, just come back in with a lot of care for yourself, I think. And I think, so this time I've come back 3 days a week, and I'm until Louis is 1 year old, which will be next month. And I've just taken a bit more of those boundaries and realized I could. But again, Sharesies is bigger, and it's it in some ways is easier now too. But I'm sure it would have been before if I wanted to do that, because the team then and the team now are so supportive of supporting parents.
Yeah. And in terms of other mothers that might be, thinking about returning to work, would you have any advice for them that may be going through the same doubts or going through that same process?
I think, what's my advice? I think just knowing it's okay and it's normal. I think that's important, and just don't put too much pressure on yourself, and just keep communicating with if there's something you want and it's not there, let them know. People want to make sure. Overall, what I notice is human beings, we want to make sure people are having a good time and that they're feeling included. So if you're not, let them know what, the people you work with, what that is. And if you're finding that you're not getting what you're after, then and it's not feeling like a supportive workplace, then maybe there's better workplaces out there. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I did speak to another sort of mother that had returned to work recently, and she spoke of the challenges, but she also spoke of her growth as a person and how that reflected in her leadership. Have you noticed anything in that regard yourself? I've noticed another degree of empathy that I've built for people who have just other things going on in their lives. I've always had a level, but I think that this, I've noticed, or I've lived it a bit more maybe. And that doesn't have to be just parenting. And a lot of people do this at different times in their careers too. Or, have something going on. I think when I first came back, I was very strict with my time. I was in my mind, okay, I wasn't in terms of I let things go over, but between those hours I'm out, I needed to be there with my family. And I think this time I've been able to embrace more of that harmony, where I've just before this, I had my 2 kids Plunkett meeting, and I go out and do that, and I come back, and it's just a bit more fluid, and I'm a bit more relaxed with that, and can feel like I can own that with people. I'd be like, I'm doing that, rather than, do they think I'm not going to be doing stuff? Which is just, I don't know, Yeah. It's funny. It's just, it's funny. And so, it's hard too. It definitely, I know for a lot of people, it's really hard. And I'm really in such a fortunate position to be able to create this company where it's really supportive and be in this position where I can kind of help shape what this looks like for people. But then they'll all have their own ways too. The parents or whatever come through our process, and make sure that it grows as we grow.
Yeah, that's cool to hear, and something that you're only going to become aware of through experience of what that journey's like. And also your point there around that experience, it might be different for everyone. So just making sure that you're empathetic and listening to how that can be shaped to suit everyone's needs is really unique. Couple more questions before we wrap up. First and foremost, you guys are you're continuing to hire a lot of people. why is now a great time to come and work at Sharesies?
It's really exciting, the work we're doing. Like we're having a lot of fun. We're so purpose driven in everything we do. We're in that hyper growth phase too, which I know a lot of people just get really excited about. We get to build something from scratch too, build the ways of doing things or rebuild things, and that's a blast, I think. And I hope that any time is great time to join Sharesies, and I think it, in the past and present to the future. And I'm just really excited to welcome anyone in who just really wants to work on or have the mahi around creating a financially empowered generation and giving someone with $5 the same investment opportunities. You don't have to come from the finance sector and or the tech sector, just really deeply care about that and want to work with a bunch of real rad people that care about that too.
Nice one. Lastly, before we leave you, Brooke, I'd love to hear, have you had any amazing career advice that's helped shape your decision making? And sort of second part to that is any career advice that you'd share to others that might be curious about tech or getting into a different path than they're in at the moment?
I've had so much wonderful advice and insights. I think early on, finding a mentor was so grounding for me. Like I said, I'm a bit fast paced and sometimes I'll be like, cool, tick that next, and really having those mentors who also, I don't have a family of strong business connections here or anything like that. And so needing to build that network or know how to and have that kind of person that helps sense check or share their experience and help you think about things differently, and sometimes take that personal perspective out of it and you can see it from another person's perspective or how they're kind of hearing the situation. So having mentors throughout my career have been so helpful. I still have some now, right through I've had mentors, and I think that has been so helpful, having mentors inside the company I've worked in to also having mentors outside of the company I work in. And you only need one or two, depending on what you're wanting to figure out. But and I went I've always gone for strong female mentors externally, along with some men too who have some awesome experience that they can share. I honestly, I think there's so much value in that mentorship really, and it helps you continually learn.
And how did you seek those out personally, just out of interest? Was that something that sort of happened naturally, or were you quite deliberate around that?
I had to be pretty deliberate. It wasn't coming naturally to me. And I was at university and I felt like I had to choose marketing or finance, and I kind of wanted to, do both. And I knew there was this world out there, but I didn't really know the options or the roles or anything really that was potentially out there. And I'd keep hearing, it's not in business, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I don't know anymore. At my university, I found out that they had this, so at Victoria University, they had a business board, which was a board member, a board of people from across New Zealand, from businesses around, I think mostly Wellington. And I saw that there was a female on there, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to email her and go, will you be my mentor? I do need to rewind a little bit, but I'll come back to my rewind. And so I asked her, and she was like, under my capacity as this board person, I'd be happy to meet. And, we, ever since then, we've stayed in touch, and I've learned so much from her. But also before that, when I did Young Enterprise, I think this is where the whole mentor idea came from in my mind, or connection, was when I did Young Enterprise at school. We needed to find a mentor, and I found a mentor, and she was fantastic and was so good at just helping me navigate and that business and the learnings, I think. And so I was like, oh, there's this thing called mentor, I need one of them. And I think at university, that's how I first hunted my first mentor. And then when I started working in my career, I would see the people that I was like, oh, there's I could learn a bit from you, or you've got some really cool experience. And I've been declined for sure, and I held it against them a little bit. You're like, what? Because it takes so much guts to ask, like it really does. But I also totally understand now too, because it is a lot of time, and they were mentoring other people and things like that. But the people that have said yes and have supported me, I've just learned so much from, and it's just so great having that sounding board. Sometimes you hear something, you're like, you know what, I will definitely not do it like that. You've just helped me feel even more stronger in my approach on something, and it's cool in itself too.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, you've got to learn your own way. And I think that's really important as well, understanding that, first and foremost, to ask and to be deliberate around it, but also not to feel too upset if for some reason that person can't give their time, because they might be really busy, but just to keep asking, and someone will come out of the woodwork eventually. So I think that's really cool advice, and appreciate you sharing it.
You can also ask if they don't know. You can also ask, is there someone you'd recommend?
That's a good tip.
Because sometimes you don't know I don't know who next to go to, and so that kind of might help.
Brooke, thank you very much for your time. We absolutely love what you and the rest of the team have built and will continue to build in the future. And we look forward to seeing a lot more of the growth as it continues. So thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much, Greg. Really appreciate it.